Thank you for
So,
accepting my invitation and allowing me to talk with you.
well, sure. No, thank you for the invitation, and I've been looking forward to finally getting together. I know we've been trying for a few days, and I think our schedules have just been back and forth. So it's finally nice to sit down and talk with you.
So I want to introduce you to my audience. Can you introduce yourself to my audience?
Sure, of course. My name is Jason Sullivan. I live in Kuwait. I am a mental health therapist. I am an author. I host the podcast Quiet Chaos. And I do a lot of other different types of work, including fishing. So, a lot of tough work on that side.
Can I call you as a multitasker?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So podcast and writing and all these fishing and all these are three different things. How can you manage?
Oh, too much. No, we stay busy. Especially with the pandemic. Mental health has been something that's been very much in demand because a lot of people are struggling right now and going through a really hard time, and so that's been busy. We just released the book last week, and so marketing, working with the publisher has been busy too. So yeah, so it keeps me busy. A lot of things go on, and a lot of decisions are that we have to make. Getting the book in websites and stores. So we're working on a lot of things like that as well.
So Quiet House, what is this?
Well, Quiet Chaos. Initially, I wanted to have a platform for Kuwait, and that platform, because in Kuwait we do have a lot of taboo around the issue of mental health. And I wanted to have something that people could access anonymously if they felt uncomfortable going to a therapist. But I wanted to give them ways to help develop themselves and to seek answers to a lot of the questions that we have. And so originally it started off with a website, and that's quietchaoskw.com, which has the resources, a blog. It has access to the podcast, and of course, then we got into the podcast, and you do interviews, and I mean, what it's like, preparing and getting in touch with people, and so there's a lot of work on that end. But again, these are all areas that we wanted to offer help and offer access to mental health in ways that people may not have had access. And then the book came. The book is called Quiet Chaos: The Link Between Anxiety and Awareness. And again, anxiety is the most common disorder on the planet. Uh, to some level, you want to have some anxiety. I mean, if you don't have any anxiety, then something's wrong. But then there are unhealthy levels of anxiety. And this is what the book deals with. It comes from a bit of a transparent perspective. I talk about my own anxiety. I have an anxiety disorder that I've treated for most of my life. And so learning to work through it, I put my own struggles in the book. So it's not just 5 steps to getting better, it's actually the journey and the process of growing.
So what are the problems that you have listened from the people who who are connected with you?
What do you can you be a little more specific? I'm not following.
You are a mental health therapist, right?
Ah, okay,
So yeah. So what are the problems that people said to you, and what are the treatment that you gave to them?
okay. Uh, so with treatment and the types of disorders that I work with everything from um, basic anxiety, depression. Uh, I work with bipolar, borderline disorder. I work with psychosis, schizophrenia. So a little bit of everything, which is I like the challenge. And what you find is that people who struggle, people who've been through a lot, they have a lot of color in their story. and so they have even though they may struggle and maybe they even have hallucinations, what you find is that there's such rich texture to their character, and they're such wonderful people, but they're just struggling just like anybody else.
So yeah, you said anxiety is the thing which every human being is facing, is experiencing. What is the problem that they say about this?
About anxiety, well, anxiety, I mean, you have to think, we live in a world, I mean, think about this now. I'm in Kuwait now. What city are you in India?
Telangana, a new
Okay,
state.
so okay, new state. Okay, I, I've been all over India. Uh, I spent a lot of time in Delhi, a lot of time in Bangalore, and Bombay, uh, Pune. I mean, Goa, of course. I think everybody goes to Goa. uh, but you think about the fact that you and I are talking in two different countries right now, and just like that, we're connected. Then you add in social media, you add in um, how all of that availability impacts our daily lives. So if I work for a company, like for example, I have clients on 4 continents right now, and so that puts responsibility on me to understand the cultural context of what they're struggling with, uh, and to provide help for them in the cultural basis that they need. And that kind of stress we didn't have 20 years ago. Um,
Okay.
you know, teleconferences now, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And so people are worried and people are very scared right now. And so when we get scared, our brain begins to function a bit differently. What happens is the part of our brain that retains information, that holds on to it, slows down. The part of us that remembers details about things slows down. And what happens is that you'll find that most of the brain actually does slow down, but a smaller part called the limbic system speeds up. And this is the part that increases the heart rate. It changes our body temperature. It changes your digestion. It changes your reaction time to things. It means that you're not going to prioritize the same way as you normally would, and which is great. Let's say you're being chased by somebody in a dark alley. Well, yeah, you don't want to spend time looking at their shoes and say, wow, those are really nice shoes. You need to run. Okay, and in that position, that's a normal response. But on a daily level, when we have that reaction, it doesn't help us. In other words, if I need to be focusing on a call or recording, or let's say you're doing an interview and it's hard to concentrate because your anxiety level is high, then what you find is that your anxiety is beginning to impede how you're functioning, and this is the most common issue on the planet.
So before this pandemic, human used to do his work and go to hobbies and see his personal life, and he's more into all these things. But this thing, the lockdown, the entire world, humans are living in their homes and they are experiencing new things which they didn't experience before, and they started seeing each other and they started spending time with each other, with their families. And can I say that coronavirus is saying that human, you are not the only species. We also have life here, and we have a right to live here. And so you have to know that you are not only the species which is living on this planet, and you are not the person who have every right. And can I say human beings uh, came to know the importance of every species, and he started thinking about all the species. And can I say that there is a lot of change in
Mm.
thinking way of a human being?
Huh. Yeah, I think I think the pandemic has really put a lot of things into perspective like that. I mean, being able to go to the grocery store, go to any market, uh, people now are questioning whether that's safe. Uh, where you see people wearing masks, um, and you'll see sections. I know in Bombay, towards Chembur and uh, Bandra got hit really hard, and Chembur got hit really hard by the pandemic, and and overall as a nation. But I think 56% of the states, um, what do you call them? Coronaviruses. Uh, 56% of them were in Bandra and Chembur, and so imagine daily functioning when you're in the most infected area in the country, you know.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and you're right. I mean, it does put things into perspective because you realize now there's something a little more powerful, something we're not used to, and you realize that we haven't had this kind of a pandemic in 117 years.
Okay.
uh, that's a long time, man. And you would think with all the changes in technology, with all the growth of the medical field, that we would be able to handle it, but we haven't. And so yeah, it has made people question their own fragility, their own place in the world. I mean, because you know, as people, we tend to what's the word, man? This is the hard part of getting old, is you forget words. um, but we tend to discriminate sometimes between other people. Sometimes we discriminate our priorities. We don't care. Some people don't care about the environment. Some people don't care about other species of animals living. But this is one you can't ignore because this one's everywhere, and it spreads so quickly and so fast. And so I think we're seeing our limitations for the first time in a very long time, and that's had a terrible effect on people.
And if you take a family, they are, father, mother, sister, husband, wife. In India, I don't know about the
Mhm.
Kuwait. In India, a lot of people are living with their families. Now this pandemic made them to see them and interact with them for a long time. And
Mhm.
this is the situation they are facing for the first time in their last 10 or 20 years.
Mhm.
So
Well,
what is the
it is interesting.
what is the mental changes that you have observed in people?
Well, you know, we've gone through stages in the pandemic, and so we went through a bit of a heroic phase where we were going to help our neighbors, we were going to help everybody, and then we went into a honeymoon phase where it's like, you know what, I'm going to stay locked up, but I'm going to exercise and I'm going to stay in shape and I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to do all these things. And now we're into a state of disillusionment. We've kind of shifted out of that. So I'll give you an example. In Kuwait, during the honeymoon phase, everybody was ordering weight sets so they could work out at home. Everywhere was sold out, and people were ordering all kinds of workout equipment. Now nobody's using it. I mean,
Oh
everybody's
yeah, yeah,
worrying about other things because now it doesn't have that same feel. There's that excitement is gone, because the honeymoon phase that we were going through has gone on to a point that it's not a honeymoon phase anymore. And so now people are feeling tired and they feel a bit confused. They feel like, okay, when is this going to end? And so they have a lot of new questions. And so even though what we see is countries are reopening, um, we still don't have the pandemic under control. We really don't have treatment yet. There's no vaccine.
yeah,
And so now it's like, okay, we've done as much as we can to help people, but now countries are starting to look at the economic impact, and they're starting to say we have to open the countries, even though we don't have treatment for it. And so I think you're going to see this back and forth for a little while, where you're going to see numbers increase and then things close, then things numbers increase and then things will close, and it's going to be up and down for a while.
yeah. And tell me about the book that you wrote.
The book that I wrote, well, the book I wrote, again, is more about anxiety. I have a copy here. Put it up there. So I don't know. There
Quite
you go.
chaos.
Okay. Quiet
Nice.
chaos. Uh-huh.
Okay.
And the
Yes.
book, again, it, it's very different than most books on issues of anxiety. Most books will give you three steps, like, or 5 steps. Do this, 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 and this, and you'll be fine. But the reality is our brain doesn't work that way. Uh, if you've ever worried about something and you've been really stressed about someone, and someone comes to you and says, just don't worry about it. It's okay. Don't worry about it. That doesn't help. You tend to worry a little more because it's like, this person doesn't get it. What's wrong with them? And so, what I did in this book was I began to write about my own struggle with it, but then also really talk about the issues that we face with anxiety. So, if I'm an anxious person by nature, trust will be very hard. Trusting other people, being close to people can be very difficult. And so I go into the topic of trust and the importance of it, and then begin to talk about the fundamental needs that we have as people. And so the need for safety, for example, to continue living, survival, that's a really important need. Because if you don't survive, well, I mean, you may not be anxious anymore, but you're not alive. Um, and then a sense of freedom. Now, everybody will have a different idea of what freedom means. Okay. But for each individual to understand their freedom and to feel that they can express that freedom uh, according to their level is a basic human need, and a sense of purpose. If we feel like our life has no meaning and no purpose, then we begin to question what we do and why we do it. And then finally, the sense of community. Who are the people in our lives, and are they negative people, or are they positive influences? uh, and these are things that you really look through, and when you see anxiety issues, anxiety always comes out of one of those four categories not being okay. And
Okay.
so, working through that, how do you maintain a healthy community? How do you maintain healthy intimacy in the middle of a lot of anxiety? See, these are questions that we all ask, and ultimately, what is our purpose? Uh, and so these are things that the book addresses, but in a very conversational way.
Okay. What is the effect that they get after listening to you? The people
Well,
who connect
hopefully,
you, who contact you, what is the effect that they feel? That
I
the change that they experience.
well, I have gotten a lot of emails over the years. I get a lot from the podcast. The book is just out, so we're waiting on reviews to come in on it. And so we should be seeing those, and it will be available. Right now it's on jamalan.com, but it'll be available through Amazon, and we're working on iTunes as well, so you can have it in an e format or a hard copy. But the feedback that I get, um, in general, through therapy, through the podcast, is that people connect with it. When people will message me and they'll say, "I'm really struggling with this. I'm having a hard time with this." We work through the situation. We work through what's going on, and 99% of the time, I see a very good outcome. Uh, because I don't give see when you go through a hard time, or I go through a hard time, someone giving us simple answers for complicated questions is really frustrating. And my goal is not to give simple answers, but more to be someone who goes along the journey with you, to be someone who's a safe part of your journey, and to walk alongside. And that's what the podcast does. That's what the book does. The website is a bit quieter version of that, but all of these are ways that we do it. And then in private practice, like I said, I do sessions online and in person. And right now, with private practice, I've got clients on 4 different continents. In the podcast, we're in 69 countries. I think last time I checked, we were fourth in Ukraine. I don't know how we were number four in Ukraine. Uh, as far as podcast goes, I don't know who's listening to us there, but awesome. So if Ukraine, if you guys are listening, thanks for listening. Uh, and India, man, India, we have so many listeners from India. It's absolutely mind blowing, and so many. I just got an email the other day from someone in Delhi, who said that they were the representative for quiet chaos in Delhi. So we have a lot of clients from, or a lot of listeners from all over the world.
Okay, so while doing podcast, I'm sure you will be listening to a lot of people from different parts of the world. They are telling their what they are experiencing and what the problems that they are facing.
Hmm.
So, what do you personally feel when you listen to all these people from different parts of the world? They have the same problems? Have they say different problems? Have same problems but from different sources?
Well, you know what's interesting, and as a therapist, I've done therapy for about 15 years, and in that time, what I realized is this, and I started off in the United States, then moved to Kuwait. I've been in Kuwait for 10 years. And one of the things that I've realized is this, is that while there are cultural differences, when you look at different cultures, we go through different struggles in some ways, but at the core, at the root of who we are, our struggles are very similar.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you, huh?
Yeah, yeah,
Can you hear me? Okay.
yeah. I can hear you. Yeah,
Okay. But we do have very similar struggles. There are minor differences, I think, in the cultural contexts, but overall, we all struggle with the same things. Do we have a purpose? Do we have freedom? Do we have close people that love us and that we love and trust? And are we safe? Uh,
okay,
and so, really, all of that comes together to really say, where do I fit in the world? And am I important? Who am I important to? And
okay.
so, any culture, we ask those questions.
So, what are the things which make the human to be happy all the time? What human should do to be happy all the time?
Well, okay, this is going to sound really maybe a bit dark, but I don't think we can be happy all the time. I don't think we would grow. I mean, think about this. If you had the perfect day yesterday, all right, yesterday was the best day of your life, would you wake up the next morning and say, I need to improve something? No, of course not. You would wake up and say, I want to do it exactly the same way I did yesterday. And so what would happen is eventually you get bored. And
Yeah,
from that boredom, you'd be like, I want to try something different. And then it's not the same as the perfect day. And so you go through adversity. You go
okay.
through struggle and hardship. Now, it's kind of wired into us. Tell me a movie that started off with no struggle, no issues, no hardship, and everybody was just happy. I mean, who would go see that movie?
Yeah, correct,
I mean,
correct.
the Avengers would be really different if they didn't have someone to fight.
Yeah, correct.
And within the fight, they're also fighting themselves, wanting to be better people, wanting to grow. If you look at the Justice League movies, same issue. If they didn't have an enemy, if they didn't have a nemesis to fight, then there would be no need for the Justice League. They would just be a bunch of people who can fly. Um, and so we need adversity in our lives to help us grow. And so it's through the hard times, through the struggles, that we actually become better. And I think over time, as we grow, it's not that our struggles lessen, but I think we become more confident that we can overcome them.
Okay.
Uh, uh, if you ever go to an amusement park and ride a roller coaster, for example, uh, a roller coaster can be really scary for people. And so your friends tell you, let's ride this roller coaster. And you're like, no, I'm good. I'm not riding that roller coaster. Okay, that's terrifying. No, come on, let's ride this roller coaster. Okay, okay. So you ride it. You get on the roller coaster and you ride it, and you realize it's scary, but it's not as bad as you thought. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So then you get off the roller coaster and your friends are like, let's do it again. All right.
yeah, yeah,
And you ride it again, and it's a little less scary, but it's still a little scary. Now let's say you do that 10, 15 times in one day. You're
yeah,
not afraid of the roller coaster. You're bored with the roller coaster.
yeah, correct,
And
correct.
that's how life is when we
Yeah,
face something scary, it's because we don't understand it. We fear it because we haven't experienced it yet. And going through the experience, maybe we repeat a struggle 10, 15 times before we really overcome the struggle. But in
Okay.
overcoming the struggle, now we're vaccinated, against the struggle in that way. In other words, that weakness has been dealt with. We've overcome it, and we are hardwired to engage in the difficult things to become better and overcome them.
Okay. So can I say that the unexpected things which happens for a human being, that actually scares, because every time, every day he woke up in the morning, he faces something which has not happened yesterday. So
Hmm.
every minute is unexpected. So I think the people who are prepared for the unexpected, can I say they are going to lead a happy life, and the people who expect things can be, feeling sad, and they will be committing suicides. I know people who committed suicide in India,
Hmm.
saying that my mind is my enemy.
Of course, and now that's a big statement, okay, and that's a lot to unpack. There, when you look at the mind, or when you look at happiness, or if you look at the mind as an enemy, okay, you're talking about two different categories. One category is the mind as a physical organ, just like a heart or a stomach or an arm or a leg. Um, it's a physical part. And then, but the mind is also something else. Okay, it's something else that we haven't quite figured out yet. All right, how do electrical impulses become thoughts and feelings and emotions that work together? Who knows? That's a big question. Uh, how they work, we understand a bit more than we did. But sometimes what happens is that those basic chemicals, those neurotransmitters in the brain, they don't function properly. So we have three main neurotransmitters tied to mood, which are serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine. And when they're out of balance, we do get depressed. And so there is a depression that sets in that has a physical cause. And it may not be really about anything going on around us.
Okay.
And so treating that, we have to treat the physical side. And there are ways of doing that. I mean, a lot of different ways of doing that. But over time, what happens is that our brain gets into that cycle and it gets stuck there. And so when we get depressed, if we stay depressed over 6 months or 7 months, all of a sudden now our brain is adapted to being depressed, and so we tend to stay that way for a long time. And working through that becomes more and more difficult. And as it becomes more difficult, we end up feeling more depressed. Okay. And so you do see higher suicide rates when you have chemical imbalances that are going on in the brain. Now, the mind as an entity, as opposed to an organ, is very different. Okay. I might feel depressed, but how I think about the depression is a different story. If I'm sitting there, well, why do I feel tired all of the time? Why do I feel like I don't have a purpose? See, there's that questioning side that's not necessarily part of the organ, but it is. How that works, I don't know. But we're cognizant, and we do think through things, and we do have not just feelings, but thoughts on those feelings. And I think that's where we engage, because as you begin to engage the thinking part of the brain, this amazing thing happens. It begins to stimulate the organ. And what you find is that, and there are a lot of studies on this. If you can stimulate the right and left hemispheres of the brain, it actually has a calming effect on the body. All right. If you go to Amazon.com and you type in adult, okay, just the word adult, and let the autofill do the rest, coloring books are the number one thing that show up. And it's because when adults sit down and color, it actually stimulates the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere of the brain. And when that begins to happen, it offsets the part of the brain that panics or has anxiety. And it literally causes a chemical change in the body, which means you're stimulating what we call the prefrontal cortex, which is where we regulate our emotions and we regulate our priorities. And so if something was hard to begin, like, let's say you have a homework assignment that's due, or you have a job that has to be done and you're dreading doing it, doing simple things that stimulate the brain will actually help you engage those things.
Okay.
And so it's not that we just go take medications, or that we just take some supplement or a homeopathic remedy, but there are actually really basic things that we can do instead of that, that actually get us started on the process, and then we can move forward step by step.
Then why still, after knowing this, also a lot of people are unable to implement what you said?
Because I think a lot of people don't know that these things exist. Okay, um, some people think that depression is a spiritual issue. Some people think that depression is because their family is really annoying. Some people think that depression is because maybe they're overweight and they want to weigh less, or maybe they want to weigh more because they don't have muscle. And so we attribute it to the things that we don't have, or maybe the things that we want. And so what
Okay.
we do is, and you can see this uh, when you are driving through, and someone pulls up in a car and it's got flashy wheels on it and it's jacked up. They're pursuing happiness, or they come out, they're using steroids and they're all pumped up. They're compensating for something. I mean, there's some reason they had to get that jacked, to feel okay with themselves. And what that tells us is that where we put the most energy and effort is usually where our biggest questions are. It's where our biggest fears are. And so we're trying to show the world, I am strong enough. I am capable enough. I am worth it. No matter what the question it is. But what if it wasn't that stuff?
Okay.
What if it was something deeper? But what happens, and another one, I'll tell you, another big one is marriage. A lot of people really get depressed over marriage. And it's either one, they don't want to get married. Okay. And, culture really pressures marriage, man. If you're 25 and you're not married, oof, the aunties will be like, why? Thank you. And so, um, if you are, if you, let's say you really love somebody and you want to get married to them and they're not interested, and so we post on social media, we do things, we buy flowers, we do silly things that we hope that will get their attention, but we're chasing the thing that we think will make us happy. And the
Okay.
issue is not happiness at that point. The issue is balance. And so when we learn to engage in balance, it doesn't mean that we avoid struggle. It means that we're able to engage struggle, and we can engage it and overcome, and it reinforces a better feeling. I mean, we literally produce hormones and neurotransmitters that make us feel better when we overcome something. I mean, think about it. When you finish something that you've worked really hard on, you feel good. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's because you've overcome it, and your body has a reward center in the brain, and that comes out in dopamine, and dopamine is the happy hormone. It's like it releases, and you're like, oh, thank goodness, yes, yeah, I did it. um, and so these are natural things, but in order to experience those things, we have to engage the struggles around us. And so that's why I say that I don't think that there are simple answers for complicated problems, but we need people alongside of us in the journey. Maybe it's our best friend, or maybe it's family. Maybe family's the problem. Okay, uh, especially in the pandemic. Everybody's been stuck in the house, like you said a little earlier, with their family, and it's like, I need to move to another country, and so having someone to support you or to be with you through the journey is very important.
So, in different ages, human beings react to depression differently.
Hmm.
Do they take in the same way the below 20 or below 30, below 40, below 50?
Well, I would say this, that at different stages in your life, you're struggling with different issues. Um, when you're 13, 14, uh, your priorities are really different than when you're 20.
Yeah.
When you're 40, your priorities are really different than when you were 20, and so on and so forth. And I think what happens is that if we don't understand these things at 14 or at 20, then we carry the questions into our 30s and 40s. If
Okay.
we don't learn to fight and struggle through them, we carry that also. And so learning to struggle with the things, learning to, I mean, all the way back to Greek literature, we've had superheroes. All right.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
we have Thor now, but back in the day, we had Hercules. Okay, and so
Okay.
it's the same story that's been repeated for thousands of years.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Sita and Ram. I mean, there's so many heroic, epic mythologies that play into our belief systems, but it's because what we're also reflecting on is not just what we see outward. We're not just looking at the hero outside. We're looking for someone to relate to that has struggle and overcomes that struggle as well.
Yeah.
And so we go through loss, we go through struggle, we relate with that in a movie because we go through that, we go through it, we experience it. And so when we see a hero overcome their struggle, we feel encouraged. But
Yeah.
having that in our daily lives is important. And that comes from friends and from family and maybe parents, maybe a therapist if those aren't available. But I think that the reason that we get to a place where we look at suicide as an option is usually because we haven't struggled through it out of fear, and we've isolated ourselves from the world around us. So we literally end up alone. We literally end up questioning our purpose to such a great point that we feel like we don't have a purpose. We've lost our community, and now we're questioning whether we should survive. And
Okay.
so to work through that, community becomes very important, and purpose becomes important again because you have to engage in that conversation. You have to engage in the struggle, and that's hard for some people. It really is. And so therapy, I think, becomes a part of that. I'll tell you, as a therapist, I don't think you can tell me. I don't think you can tell me something that would surprise me. I've heard everything, and and I mean, people will come in and they'll be really honest, and I don't judge them. If anything, when someone tells me something really deep, I usually feel pretty honored that they would risk being that honest with me, because all of us have a darker side. All of us have secrets. We all have things that we don't want the world to know. But until we're able to engage with that darker side of ourselves and bring it to the surface a little bit, we'll always fear it. We'll always try
Okay.
to hide it. And in that place, we'll always feel lonely.
Okay. So, can I say the people who are unable to implement what they wanted, or the people who are unable to do what they like, are in their minds, the chemical that you said is not releasing, and that is why the reason they are not feeling released or happy.
That can definitely play a role in it for sure. Absolutely.
So, how many people out of how many people said that who came to you? How many people said that the chemical that is there released after your therapy?
Well, I'm telling you, rarely does anybody leave not happy. Uh, I have a pretty good success rate, and again, it's because I don't minimize their problems. I think when someone is willing to come and share their deepest struggles, that takes bravery and that takes a lot of courage. And and for me, there's as a therapist, I have to really honor that and respect that because I know how we function, and I know it's so hard to talk about the things that bring us the most shame. And so when people risk that, they engage in the issues. Man, I mean, it's probably one of the most amazing moments when someone shares their deep, dark side, because that means they're really on the verge of working through it. And see, as a therapist now, I don't do magic, man. I'm not one of those therapists that's going to say, magically you're going to be cured. Absolutely not. I, I'm the kind of therapist that will struggle alongside of you, and when you leave and you finish therapy with me, you're not going to say Jason was the best therapist ever. You're going to say I did the work, I grew, I did it, and that's the point. If you leave talking about how great I am as a therapist, then that would be bad therapy. If you leave talking about how you overcame your issue and you overcame your struggle, that's the point. And
Yeah, understood you.
I'm just the guy that happened to be there with you, and that's really about it. Um, and so my job in that is to know how to walk alongside of people and how to go through that
Okay.
journey with them. And I find that that's much more successful than trying to engage them and fix them. Uh, because we do have a lot of therapists that would be better as auto mechanics. It's like someone comes in, my head's making a funny sound. Okay, well, let's put spark plugs in and let's take this piece out. Let's just change that part and
Yeah.
fix this part. That'd be nice if it worked that way, wouldn't it? I mean, you just go in and you change something and you're done. That would be so nice. But that's just not how we function. And
Okay.
so,
So I want.
learn. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me.
No, no, no. Go
You,
ahead.
you
Okay.
I want
So,
to know. Yeah. I have a question. I want to know how your mind functions.
how does my mind function? uh, not much different than anybody else's. I think that I'm not surprised when people struggle, uh, because I've seen people struggle for 15 years. Um, I don't judge people because I see the bravery and the courage that it takes to talk about the things we fear the most. And so when people do open up and they say something, and it makes me sad when their friends judge them. Maybe it's an addiction issue, and they talk about their addiction issue, and you have that one friend. You always have that one friend that's like, just stop doing it, man. Just stop. Okay. Well, if it was that
Yeah.
easy, of course he would have stopped, but it's not that easy. And for someone to be honest and to come forward and to come to their community and say, I really have a hard time and I'm struggling, man, that's the time that we got to embrace them and love on them. And so when I see people coming out and talking about things and really, really being honest, to me, I think I respect that more than just about any other trait in a person.
Okay. So you said you do fishing.
I love fishing, man. That's
This
what I
is
do.
completely different from podcast and therapy.
That's my therapy. uh, yeah, man. I go fishing, and I have to make time for myself. Uh, if I don't, I'll burn out. And
Okay.
so the last few weeks, I've been really overwhelmed with a lot of work. And I told my wife, I said, sweetheart, next week I'm going to take a day and I'm going out. I'm going to drive my boat as far offshore as I can. I'm going to anchor it, and I'm just going to fish all day. And so she said, okay, go ahead. So I got permission. I'm good.
Okay. Nice. So is this the first book that you published, or do you have any other books?
This is the first book that I published. It isn't going to be the last. I have two more coming down the road, but right now this is the first one. We're working. I wanted to work out all the kinks, and I wanted to really go through the process of publishing, um, just to understand the process a little better, so that the next book is even better.
Okay. What is the name of the next book? What is the
I
name of
haven't
the next
decided
book?
on the I haven't decided on the name yet. I want to do two more. One will be on the need for intimacy, and will be more geared towards relationships and dating or marriage. And then the third one will be loving someone with a disorder. What does it mean to, if someone that you care about has a problem like depression or anxiety? What can you expect from it? What can you learn from it? How can you live with them? Is it possible to live with them? Because there are some disorders that are just not, they're not doable. um, not without intense help and without intense treatment. And so, if you have those points in a relationship where you're doing all of the work and your partner, even though they're struggling, isn't able to contribute to the relationship, how do you deal with it? So that will be the third one.
Okay. You had talked about the disorders, mental disorders. I want you to tell about mental order.
Mental order, I like that one. So basically, what does it mean to be healthy?
Okay.
So mental order, yeah, I mean that would be when everything's working fine and we're just going through daily life. We still face struggles, but it doesn't impose, it doesn't keep us from functioning. We don't. Everybody has depression. I'll say this: everybody goes through periods of mild depression. Everybody goes through periods of mild anxiety. But when it begins to stop your daily functioning, that's when it becomes something that you have to work through. So
Okay.
I would say that not everybody needs to go to therapy. Um, I think if you want to do self exploration, I'm kind of a nerd, man. So if you want to explore yourself and understand how you function, therapy is great. If you want to work through those issues that are keeping you from moving forward, therapy is great. But if you have a great support system and you have the people around you that are there with you through the journey, man, that's great too. And so I don't think therapy is always the answer. I think a healthy community is the answer.
Can
And
I
when
say you
that
are the
healthy,
example?
uh,
Can I say that you are the example for the sound called mental order?
okay, I like that. I'll take that. Absolutely.
Only a person who knows the mental order can tell the disorder, can
Exactly.
understand the disorder. Anything which is not wrong, anything which is wrong, anything which is not fixed, anything which is not gone in a straight path or not going in a correct way. You know, you will understand. Yeah, this is wrong. This is what which is making disturbance in your mind. So that's why the reason I wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, and you know what's interesting is when you sit with someone who has severe anxiety or severe depression and you ask them simple questions like, what's your favorite food?
Okay.
What's your favorite hobby? What's your favorite color? Sometimes they struggle to answer because they don't know.
Yeah, I observed this. I observed this.
Ah, and so helping them understand the things that they love also is a really big part of the process, like going towards mental
Okay.
order, and so
Okay.
what are your priorities? What is your favorite thing? What is your biggest passion in life? And what you find is that all of those tie back to those four categories. What is my purpose? How am I surviving and continuing to survive? What does my community look like, and how do I exercise my sense of freedom? And so helping them understand that these things are still present and still available is really important, and it's a big part of the process. So I like that term mental order. I like that. That's a good term.
So when they are experiencing this mind state called disorder, uh, they feel. I think they feel surprised to listen this kind of questions. What is your favorite food? Who is your favorite author, or who is your favorite podcast person? So this will be like surprising because they forgot what actually they love, and they are in a state where they cannot connect with the world, or they are living in another state where everything contains depression, everything which is connected with depression and negative mindset or negative thoughts.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when you lose touch with those things, you're losing touch with the fabric of who you are. And so being
Okay.
able to rediscover those parts of yourself, man, that's the best feeling, when you walk outside, you're like, oh, my favorite color is blue, and I love chocolate. I mean, Who doesn't love chocolate? Actually, I know a couple of people, but they like peanut butter instead, so that's fine. But being able to embrace the things that drive us, the things that make us passionate, that replaces being driven by the things that make us fear. You see, and I think personally, I think we're driven by one of those two. We're either driven by passion or we're driven by fear.
Correct.
And learning to embrace our passion, embrace our strengths, reminding ourselves that we do have purpose, that helps us move forward along the journey, and we're not moving in fear. It doesn't mean that we don't face adversity, but it means that we don't move through it in fear. We move through it in passion. We move through it with, uh, move through it like Ajay Devgan uh, in an action movie, man. Whether it's Simba, uh, uh, they've got one coming out. I'm so excited! I can't wait for the new one to come out. But but you want to be the action hero of your own movie. You know, you overcome it, and you overcome it, and you put those shades on, and you move forward. You're like, I did that, man. I nailed that. I did it, and that drives you in a very different way than fear.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I'm sure you will look like a god when you pull all the negative things from their mind at that particular time when they are feeling depressed, and you are trying to make them come out from their discomfort zone.
Mm. Well, that and this is an area that as a therapist, I do it a bit differently. People need someone to relate with. And a lot of therapists, when you go to them, they'll tell you, okay, you need to do this, this, and this, and this. I'll tell you, like, if you come to me and we're sitting and you say, nobody understands, I have anxiety and I'm worried and I stress and I can't sleep at night. I'll say, you know what? I've got an anxiety disorder too. And you and I both struggle probably pretty similarly. And so let's struggle together, you know? And so now they have someone who's human, who struggles too, and someone they can relate
Okay.
with, as opposed to someone who's not real.
But you will be listening to a lot of people who are into depression. Uh, how you personally handle depression?
Well, a lot of it comes from balance. I know my purpose pretty well. I think at this point in life, I know when to take a break. I think that's an important part. And you know this. You do interviews and you do a YouTube. I see you on Insta. So I know you are all over the place. And so, but there has to be a point where you step back. You know, maybe it's an hour, maybe it's a day. Um, it,
Correct.
it it is so hard to step away though because we love what we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
and, and so so what happens then is that as you start, you know, as you become more successful and more successful, people start coming and finding you, and they're like, hey, can you help me with this, can you help me with this, and you're like, yeah, let's do this because I love doing this stuff. And so learning to draw lines and learning to draw my limits so that I can continue to be passionate about these things and I can help the most people, but also not overwhelm myself. And so
Okay.
that's why I go fishing. That's why I'll play a guitar, or that's why I'll take my kids out and we'll play. You know, watch my kids run up and down the beach for a while, and to me that's a nice day. And then I can go back and engage and do the things that I
Okay.
need to do. Mhm.
Okay. So can I say as a human being you achieved more than what you expected
I'm sorry.
as a human being? Can I say as a human being you have achieved more than what you expected because you are solving the problems of the people and you are making them to come out from their struggles with your therapy? Can I say you have achieved more than what you wanted to do in your life?
You know, I wish I could say yes. I would say that the human side of me doesn't always see achievement. You know, the fearful human. that struggles with anxiety doesn't always see the achievement. What I find is this is that I just want to help more people. I want to sit with more people. I want to be there for more people. And so to me, I think when people come into my office, I tend to look up to them a little bit and think and respect the bravery that it takes to engage. My accomplishments, man, I don't know. You could take my accomplishments and 50 rupees and probably buy a soda. Uh, but uh, but the most important thing to me is seeing other people grow. And so yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I've accomplished too much. I just do what I love.
Nice. I think you're having a great life.
Oh, thank you.
So, do you have anything to say to the people who watches this video on YouTube and to the people who watches from any part of this planet?
Mm. I would say this. If you're struggling and having a hard time and you feel lonely or you feel like things are just not going your way and you're struggling, it's okay to reach out. It doesn't have to be to me. I'm not doing a promo here, uh, but reach out to somebody that you trust, and because going through life alone, going through life isolated, is the hardest way of doing it. We are wired for community, and we're wired to be loved, and we're wired to love. But when we're scared, when we're hurting, when we're angry, we tend to pull away from the people that can support us the most. And so reach out and find your community, find your people, and lean on them if you need to, and be there when they need to lean on you.
So, the people who watches this video, if you're facing any kind of the problems that you said, definitely, if you give me your links, if your website links or any of
Mm,
your links where they can contact you, I'll put the links in the description of this video
okay,
so that they can contact you. They can contact you and they can ask. They can tell their problems to you.
sounds great. Sounds
Yeah.
great to me.
So, can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Of course, you have my permission. I was excited to do it. So
Thank you
definitely.
so much. Thank you so much for giving your valuable time to me and allowing me to ask a few questions. And you told a lot of great things, which are very important for every human being who is living on this earth. That will be helpful for them. And if they face the anxiety that you said, it is a major problem, a major thing on which human being is facing things with that. So if they need help, they definitely contact you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I got to tell you, man, I've gotten to watch a lot of your videos, and um, you're doing a lot too. You're reaching out, man. You're literally reaching around the world, which is so cool. And so thank you for reaching out and letting me be a part of that. Thank you.
It's my pleasure, sir. Thank you so much.
All right.
Take care.
Take care. Bye bye.
Yeah.